Welcome to the Studio Chat podcast. My name is Barbara Thompson. Each week, I'll be bringing you a self-care expert or a message to help you to discover how to live your best life and understand your mind-body connection. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now, let the Studio Chat begin. Welcome everybody to this very special episode today, something that personally is very, very, very close to my heart and also part of the reason why I became a therapist. And we're going to talk about narcissism today, and I've got Nova Gibson, who's an absolute expert and a powerhouse on narcissistic abuse. She's the founder of Brighter Outlook Narcissistic Abuse Counselling Service and the author of this incredible book called Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. I have read 2 books in my life that have cracked their behavior open. It's really given me helpful tools. And Nova, your book is going to be sitting on the shelf in my counseling practice, and I'll be handing that out as part of the tools that I will give my clients. So I want to thank you for that, your book.
Look, firstly, I'm so happy that you reached out and asked me to do the podcast with you. I'm really honored to be here. And thank you for those kind words. I'm just so happy that this book is resonating with so many people. When I wrote it, I didn't want it to be a textbook. There's enough books out there that describe narcissism, but I wanted it to be a handbook and a companion for victims and survivors so they understood what was happening to them, what they went through. And of course, I wanted to give them concrete strategies to heal rather than just say, well, this is what it is. You can find your own way.
Yeah. Anyone listening to this, I'm sure if you've clicked on it, you may have a narcissist in your life. You may have narcissistic parents. You may have a child that you co-parent with them. It is absolutely crippling and painful, soul-sucking. It literally, I feel tears in my eyes talking about it because it just rips your soul apart. And part of who I am is I was a child of a narcissistic father. Very powerful, very, very, if you could rate the 1%, he'd be at the top one. He would get an award for how good he was. And I had no idea until I was 38 that I wrote it down before I spoke to you. I've been married once and he was 1, but I've had, including my ex-husband, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've had 5 serious major relationships in my adult life, and they have all been narcissists, and they've all got worse and worse and worse and worse over time. And so you can see why me talking to you today is so powerful, because I really want to send this message out to people that it's not your fault. And if you're brought up in a household, you don't know any different. You think it's normal until, like me, I did it 5 times to the point where I had no soul. I had no who I did. I knew I wasn't crazy. I know I'm a good person. And why am I attracting absolute crap?
Yeah. It's such a painful understanding to come to. The process to coming to that point is an incredibly difficult and painful journey. But with the right support like you're doing, which is getting the message out there, it doesn't have to be. It's just that we're not taught these things around narcissistic abuse and coercive control as a child in school. We're taught, that bruises means you've been hurt, and certainly not the manipulative, covert strategies that someone like this uses. We don't know. And as you very appropriately said, Barbara, when you are raised in this, you are conditioned from the word go to normalize this. This is your normal. And you develop all of these survival techniques, coping mechanisms to survive it without even knowing you're doing that. So your normal becomes what you take with you the rest of your life. And any relationship that deviates from that is abnormal to you. It's a very painful realization.
Yeah, and I thought today, there's so many things that we can talk about, but I thought today we'll just kind of take the first layer off. As anyone listening to this, I'd like to look at the cycle of the abuse. And also just the words that when I started learning about this, love bombing, idealization, and red flags, and future faking, and the mask falling off, and grey rock, and did I say triangulation, and the flying monkeys? Like, when I got into this, I was like, I couldn't believe they all act the same, to the point where I had to go to court and get an AVO out on one of my partners because it had got that bad, which is a very typical narcissistic type of thing. I remember one of the moments, my aha moments, I was sitting in my car after the AVO had been put in place, and I was watching all the men walking out of the court. They were all wearing checkered shirts, all finely ironed, tight pants with their little bubble bums, the pointy work shoes, the same type of haircut, all polished and immaculate. And I sat in my car and went, holy shit, ding, ding. I was like, they all look the same.
Yeah. There's a pattern there.
They all, at that particular moment, I know we can't blank, but just that particular moment, they were all dressed the same, looked the same. And I was like, wow. And my girlfriends used to joke about it. I mean, it's not funny, but I had a type. And I would, you could be in a room of 500 people, and I bet you I would find the most narcissistic man in that room and grab his attention. And
toxic one. Yeah. And that's not a coincidence that you do that, or that anyone else does that. You don't go out and choose someone who's toxic. And just to reiterate to your listeners, this has got nothing to do. You going and finding 5 toxic partners in a row has got nothing to do with a lack of intelligence or weakness. Like, clearly you're a beautiful, intelligent woman. The reason this happens, and as I said, it's not a coincidence, is because of previous trauma, whether that's your childhood trauma and the familiarity you had with toxic relationships that becomes your normal, or you have been abused once in one of these relationships, and then that is what is familiar to you. Essentially, a healthy relationship where there's no fireworks going off immediately. There's no goalposts to outrun. There's no adrenaline and all of those things that we think is a good thing in the beginning, pumping through our system at the first time we meet them, and we don't become enmeshed with them very quickly. Anything outside of that is just boring. It's just boring. And someone who's healthy, you will find something wrong with them. They'll have, their nose will be too big, or they just won't be funny enough. But really what your subconscious would have screamed each and every time is that this person's not toxic, and I need someone who my instincts are telling me, or my subconscious is telling me, is toxic.
Yeah, for me, if anyone can relate to this, it was very magnetic. That was the best way for all of them, all 5. I looked at them and was like, oh, whoa. It was so strong for me. Yeah. And it's so interesting because the last 2 I could now only on reflection, not in the moment. The last 2 had an interesting pattern. And I noticed that in the love bombing stage, when they were it makes me cringe now, but good morning, beautiful. They even talk the same, like the message, like they send you a text message morning and night, and it's good morning, beautiful, and blah, blah. And I've never felt this way before. You're the most amazing woman on the planet. You're my soulmate. I've never met, they just make you just feel like you're $1 million. But these last 2, what they did was I think it was like the second date. It's very intimate. It's very nice. It's very luxurious. They put so much effort into it, and their focus is so on you. And both of them did this. I know what my insecurities are. I have always known what they are. I know where they come from. My father. I knew that before all this stuff, and I knew what they were. And what they would do is I didn't share how I was insecure about how I looked or what I felt about myself. But what they did was they both of them shared very intimate one. I know it was a lie. He said that he got sexually abused. He didn't, but he used that and I would go, oh my God. Oh my gosh. Well, you just shared that with me. So I'm actually going to share some stuff. So I would share how I felt about my body, just some really personal stuff that you don't really share unless you're you're looking towards an intimate relationship. Again, second date would share my most impersonal things, and that would get me when they would be discarding me, is all that stuff would come up. So both of them, if I could highlight to anyone, in the beginning stages when it's really exciting and amazing, if really early on they tell you something that's really personal, but you almost go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh, that's so woe is me. And oh my God. And then you overshare in the really beginning. For me, I was like, wow, that was so interesting that I could see that pattern in both of them. That's how they got me. As soon as I shared that, they would have gone, aha, I've got her.
Absolutely. And that's a textbook strategy. Textbook, I hear it every day, where they, like you said, will share some intimate detail about their life. So you think, oh my goodness, this person trusts me enough to share these really maybe dark and deep secrets. Maybe, I've heard that they might confess, look, I got a DVO against me a couple of years ago. It wasn't really my fault, yada, yada, yada. Even things like that, they will be setting up the groundwork for you to trust them, because you think, well, why would they outlay that information so early on in if they weren't really an honest person? So they're gaining your trust. They're showing you that they're honest. They're also showing you that, hey, I'm human. I recognize that I have flaws and imperfections. I'm not perfect. But the reason they do it is exactly what you said, which is to appear to be this honest, genuine person who recognizes their own flaws, so that they can get that data from you to use as a weapon against you at a later time.
Yep, it's always used against you. And that's what I found is, so in the beginning stages, it's very fast. It's very quick. It's really heavy. It's really smothering. But for me, that magnetic attraction overtook everything. It was very physical. It was very just like, almost like my eyeballs popping out of my head. Like, that's the best way I could describe it. I was just like, wow. And then they tell you everything that you want to hear, and then they're really good, obviously they mirror, so they're really good at knowing what your hopes and dreams are and telling you everything that you kind of want. And you think, oh, this could be it. Okay. And then as you go on, it's really great. And it's interesting hearing your book, and I hear stories from my clients, is when you talk about the mask dropping, it's always, and I can remember in each of those relationships, you see them as one person. And one of them, my last one, I will never forget it. We were at Woolworths. He was trying to buy salmon, and they were out of stock, or it wasn't the right salmon. And he had like a tantrum, like literally was stomping his feet, a grown man, because they didn't have the salmon. And I remember like literally going, what the fuck? Bro, it's salmon, don't worry about it. And we drove and got in the car, and he did a massive skid and a massive burnout and got smoke on his tires, and drove home really angry and really shitty. And that was the first time I saw the mask drop, and him just turning. And the ones that I can't speak for everyone else, but personally, the guys that I attracted had a real bad anger streak. And it wasn't anger that would go from zero to would be slow. It would be 1 minute I'm at 0 and the next minute I'm at 100. And it was just so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you displeased them in some way, and displeasing a narcissist, if not a sociopath, and you're never going to know. They don't get diagnosed most of the time unless it's it's court ordered. But to displease them, you're never going to know what that is, because 1 minute you're going to be doing the same thing that pleases them. The next minute, it's going to cause them to fly into a narcissistic rage. And that's what's so confusing also, for victims, because you never know the consequences of your actions. You don't know what is a good thing 1 minute will be a bad thing the next minute. And that's exactly where they want you, in a constant state of confusion where you are forever trying to please them. Like, I would imagine, when they ran out of salmon, and if that was the first time, you would have been so confused and, maybe trying to find out what was really wrong. There's got to be something else wrong with you. It can't be just the salmon, or just trying to get him out of the mood, or trying to fix it because it was so irrational, that there must be some logical reason for it. And this is what keeps victims stuck, because you're trying to find some logical reason for illogical behavior, but there is none, because they're gaslighting, the crazy narcissistic rages that do not match up with some perceived crime. They're nonsensical. You're not meant to understand it, because they're irrational and they're illogical.
Yeah, and that's so right, because reflecting back, there was multiple times where I always would train and go to the gym and spend some money on supplements, and often that's why they liked me, because I cared for myself and looked after myself. And then all of a sudden, really quickly, it would be like, oh, you're spending too much money, you're so vain, you're so up yourself, and I remember going, hang on, but that's why you like me, and that's why I like myself. And they were just so hot and cold, and you're walking on eggshells the whole time trying to go. And then the one, and this is what I really want to talk to you about today too, because I really thought I was being a bitch and I was jealous and I had issues. Triangulation really hit me hard on all of these relationships, and I didn't even know it was a thing. And can you share a little bit from your perspective of what triangulation is?
Sure. So triangulation is a situation the narcissist sets up to create drama and to make themselves as the go-between, where their hands remain clean. So a classic example is when they bring a third party in, or it could be an object they're using, okay? But let's just go with a person. So they will bring a third party into it, hence the triangle, the three parts. And a classic example of triangulation would be when the narcissist discards you, okay, and they've moved on immediately with the very person that your instincts were screaming at you about. Perhaps you'd asked them and they went, you're crazy, you're insecure, you're jealous. And then they just happen to move on with the very person they denied cheating with. And of course, as I say in Fake Love, their classic line will be something like, well, if I'm going to be accused of it, I may as well do it. Like it's, that you're the reason, once again, that they're engaging in this toxic behavior. Okay, so triangulation occurs when you bring a third party and you pit those people against each other. You spread rumors and gossip, then you stand back and you watch all the drama unfold. So getting back to this situation, they've moved on with that new target. They've given you no closure at all. The abuse has ramped up towards the end, as it always does, because they want your frantic reactions at the abuse escalating, and of course your lack of closure as a reason that they had to transition so quickly into this new relationship, because society doesn't look well on cheaters and liars. So they need to make it look like it was your fault. So they get you to escalate. And of course, society, their friends, loved ones go, oh my goodness, I'll just use Sophie. Okay, she's the character in the book. Sophie's been acting really crazy. We're so glad that you're happy now. You found a soulmate, and you did everything you could for Sophie. So they ramped up the abuse and you moved on with the new target with the empathy of society But now the new target is starting to get boring. The shine's worn off them. The love bombing has finished, and they've already hooked them in, so they don't have to love bomb them anymore and go through that arduous task. So they're getting really, really boring. Things are getting dull. So what do? They compare the new target back to you, back to Sophie. Remembering that in the beginning, oh, she was such a horrible person. I'm so glad I've got you to save me from this terrible person. Telling the new target what a horrible, so-and-so Sophie is. But then it's getting boring here. So to get the new target to react, they'll say, wow, Sophie would never do that. Sophie's cooking was so much better than yours. And here's the new target doing what you did, going crazy. Didn't you say she was your worst enemy and you hated her and you despised the fact she drew oxygen? But now you're saying she's better than me. So what happens? It gets the new target to try harder. And it also pits, without Sophie even knowing, pits these two against each other. So the narcissist has successfully used triangulation. So they're at the top of this triangle. He's created this perceived rivalry. So, and I'm only using he because of this situation, but narcissistic abuse is not gender specific. So he thinks he's amazing, and now he's got these two women essentially fighting over him. So it's about bringing a third party, or it can be an object. They can triangulate you with their car. It's about creating drama and creating feelings of insecurity and paranoia, setting that up in someone so that they try harder to please, or just because the narcissist is bored and they'll go and spread a rumor so that, two parties will come to the narcissist as the go-between person whilst they keep those people apart so they can't compare stories.
So a lot of the time, if someone's listening to this and they're dating someone or they're married to someone and you get an inkling of he's coming home late, his clothes smell like women's perfume. We're very smart. Women, we're very smart. And in your gut, I wish I could tell my younger self to trust my intuition. I think most people know what gaslighting is now, but there was a point in a relationship, I'm laughing, it's not funny, where I didn't smoke. I didn't smoke a certain brand of cigarettes, and there was a different cigarette in his ashtray, and it had a different lipstick on it. And I was like, "Whose is that?" And he's like, "That's yours." And I was like, "No, it's not." And I was like, "Oh, is it?" And then that same night, we went to go to bed, and the bed had all like fake tan in it, and that wasn't my fake tan. And he would go like, "They're the things that's yours." "Oh, is it?" "Oh my God!" And they make you feel like, losing your mind.
Yeah. And if you, as you talk about that story now, Barbara, you think, well, that's, how on earth did I fall for that? You didn't fall for it. Your instincts were initially drew you to the fact that that's not right. That's not my lipstick. That's not my tanning lotion. But you had been conditioned, number one, to override your instincts, and number two, you're trauma bonded to this person. You are addicted essentially to this roller coaster of ups and downs and ups and downs. So, and you've been gaslighted over time for so long that even inconceivable things like that are just to us would be black and white. Like that just didn't happen. Your brain has come up with these coping mechanisms, these survival techniques to survive this trauma, this abuse, which you can't even define as abuse most of the time, that you are addicted to, trauma bonded to, and you don't even know you're addicted. So this is why you think you're crazy, you're addicted, which is what trauma bonding is. It's a very, very powerful attachment to our abuser. So you're addicted, your brain, therefore, developed all of these survival instincts, and some of them were to minimize or rationalize away the abuse. So you engaged in what we call cognitive dissonance, and it goes hand in hand with trauma bonding. So you might have said to yourself, oh, yeah, I do remember putting tanning lotion on at some stage. Maybe it changes colour over time or something, or maybe I just didn't wash the sheets properly, or, maybe the lipstick changes color once it hits some kind of chemical in the cigarette. We will come up with these fantastic stories to make the abuse okay. So you might say to yourself, and many victims do this. This is how your brain engages to keep a drug in your life. Just like the heroin addict will minimize what the drug does to destroy their life, to get the drug back, to end the withdrawal. So you might say to yourself when they're cheating, when you found out that they're cheating, that oh, well, you know what? I have put on weight lately, and I really haven't been wanting to have sex with them lately. Meanwhile, why would you want to have sex with them when they're abusing you and making you feel worse than anyone has ever made you feel in your life? But you rationalize away that maybe that's why they cheated. And this is your brain engaging in cognitive dissonance, because cognitive meaning to do with thinking, dissonance meaning conflict. We've got two different strains of information. One is he loves me, the other is he's abusing me. So our brain's got to get rid of them, one of them, to get rid of the anxiety. So it dismisses the abuse, which makes you feel bad. But therefore, you've got to make the abuse that is there okay. So you engage in cognitive dissonance. I got fat. Yep. He had every reason to cheat. I burnt the dinner. That's why he, talks to me like I'm, something on the bottom of his shoe. All of these different things to keep the drug, which we don't even know we're addicted to in our life, because the thought of being without this person, like the thought of the heroin addict never having that drug in their life again, is just too overwhelming to think of.
Someone else having them. I just want to circle back to that sex, but really briefly, if anyone's listening to this part, I really want them to know. I'm interested to know if you hear this. I'm pretty sure you would. To be honest, the sex is absolutely pretty shit. They're not good lovers. They're really selfish. It's bad. It's laughable at how great they think they are, and they're not great at all. Do you hear that often? I hear that, but I also hear the words of people who are still associating the feeling they got from sex with amazing sex. So the narcissist, to them, sex is a tool, it's a weapon. So there is no intimacy involved. So, and it is all about them. Even if they're pleasuring you, it's just so they appear to be the world's greatest lover. But in the beginning, when they're setting the hooks, whatever they do, just the way they're scoping you out for, what will make you feel amazing, not just physically, it's more, mentally, emotionally, what will make you feel special and desired. So they're scoping that out. And whether it's just words or just, the way they touch your skin, whatever it is, they hook you into that feeling and the thought of someone else getting that amazing chemistry, which is manufactured. Remember, it's a tool, it's a weapon, it's a skill they hone in on where they're scoping out what you like. It's a weapon, and they will do that for every single person they come across. But when you've got perspective and you look back at it, you can have contrast and think they weren't really that good at all. I just thought it was incredible at the beginning because of this manufactured chemistry that existed. And I think when people are saying to me, although, our sex life was the best, I think that's what, in the beginning, that's what they're really referring to, is that manufactured chemistry. And And in this cycle, we talk about when they bring us in and they love us, and then they find what our weak points are, and they start to use those weak points and devalue us. And then they discard us. They're like, nah, I found someone else now, piss off. Then, like you said, with a triangulation, when they get sick of that person, they come back. It's called hoovering. They come back and be like, oh, is there any chance of me being with you? And the addiction part is very strong when they leave you for someone else. As a female, it's quite common to compare yourself, and you're like looking on Instagram, you're looking to see, oh my God, they're so much happier. She's going to have I've got them to this point. I work so hard on them. This other person's going to get everything. Oh my God, they look so happy. She's prettier. She's better than me. All that kind of stuff. And the addiction, and you long because they peppered you with so many messages. They smashed you with text messages, and they were constant. Then the constant love turned into big, long messages. I've still got some on my phone because I keep them. I've still got the list. How I broke my cycle was without even reading any books, without even watching any YouTube videos at this point, I just started to make, while I was in separate bedrooms next door to his, because we slept in separate beds, I would write a list every day when something happened or he upset me or he did something. I've still got it on my phone. The list is absolutely massive of all the things, how he would make me feel, how he would look at me, what he would say, the big, huge blow-ups we would have. And every time when he would discard me, it happened like 3 or 4 times with him, not 7, but I would make myself read that list. Whenever I wanted to look at someone on Instagram or find out what he was doing, I would actually get my notes on my phone and I would read in those moments of me feeling so alone and so hurt and so just broken. I would read that and I'd go, because our brains forget. We want to remember all the nice stuff. We want to romanticize, and that's what they prey on us for, that we'll forget all the horrible stuff. And that's what helped me break the cycle. One of the things was by every time I was addicted, every time I wanted to talk to him, every time I wanted to have communication with him, was I would read that list. And then the other best tool was just blocking. And I mean, blocking on everything. And part of the AVO, when I went to court with one, was I blocked him on everything. And even apps I wasn't even on, he was trying to get me. Then he got to the point where he made up, I can't remember the exact number now, but it was something like trying to get my attention, and he made up 11 or 12 different email addresses and was messaging me, and actually the police were going to charge him with fraud and stuff if he didn't accept the AVO, which he was fighting on me. He's like, this woman's made my life hell. And the policewoman was like, really? Like, she's been in tears at the police station. She's never dealt with the law in her life. I know what Barbara's like. I looked you up and down. I absolutely know what type you are. And he was just like, oh, she's ruined my life. And this is just the worst thing ever. And the cop rang me after she served him with an AVO. And she just said, Barbara, I just stood there with my arms crossed and looked at him and was just like, oh my God. And she said, you're going to have a fight on your hands. Do you realize that he's going to fight you? And then I instantly said, oh, I want to drop it. And she says, don't you dare. And I said, oh, I had no support in Australia. I had no one. And she was like, the police, we will support you. I will be there on court day. I will support you. And I'm so glad I listened to her. But it was instant, because they don't want to, it was all me. I was the bad, horrible person. I was this, I was that. And if anyone's listening to this and they are in a abusive relationship where, like, I was getting stalked and it just turned up on my doorstep, drugged out of his head, boozed up, I just was like, if I promised myself, if he drives past one more time or he tries to email me one more time, I just said, I'll go to the police station. And I went to the police station, and it was only then that they flagged to me that this is really serious, Barbara. You don't know anyone here. We need to get on top of this. And if anyone is, it's not important, or there's nothing major that's happening yet, I want you to listen to this podcast, and I want you to, the police were absolutely fantastic. I could not speak highly. They helped me every step of the way through that whole process.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you had that experience, because unfortunately that's not always the experience, and it's not the fault. Like, there's so many amazing police officers there. And there is more training being given to them at the moment for so that they're able better to deal with domestic violence survivors. So yeah, I'm so happy that you had that experience. Unfortunately, some aren't as experienced as the police officer that you had, and they'll have a pile sky high of DV applications on their table, and sometimes you will have to jump up and down to get your concerns heard, simply because of the number of reports that are made, the amount of malicious, vexatious reports that are made. And this is something that we need to encourage, as you are today, victims of abuse, to do, is you're not always going to get someone like you did. And if someone is not doing what that lady did and saying, you should do it, I'm going to be disappointed in you, or really, really encouraging you, then you need to do that for yourself. Be the squeaky wheel that gets the grease.
Yeah. And because that addiction is so strong, to the point of, let's get vulnerable for a minute here, that addiction and that pull that they have on you, you know it's wrong. When I was triangulated a couple of times and I knew that they were with someone else, when they would have a fight, they'd ring me and I'd go pick them up or go get them. And then they'd stay at my house, obviously would be together. And in my head at that time, this is when I was deeply in an abusive relationship, it'd be very fleeting, but I'm going to be honest, because I know other people, other women would feel this. I would think, I'm so embarrassed to say this, but I'm going to say it because I know people feel it.
Don't be embarrassed.
Oh my God. I was like, haha, I've got him now. Oh my God. Like, I'm better than her because I've got
you
him.
won the prize.
Yeah.
You won the prize. And that's
not okay.
That is like, that is just a classic example of the crazy making way that they have got us to, and the survival instincts that you needed or you engaged in to keep the drug in your life. Now, when you are trauma bonded to your abuser and it gets to that stage where, you're accepting breadcrumbs and thinking, that you've won the prize when they're with you and not the other person, that's because of the manufactured situation that the narcissist has created, as well as this powerful, powerful addiction. Now, remember, I was talking about earlier how you, what did you do? Let's just get back to saying that if you catch your partner cheating, and then you'll rationalize that, it's because I put on weight, or I didn't want to have sex with them. Or you'll believe them that they weren't having sex even when you catch them in bed with that person. You'll just think, they're lying there with no clothes on. They're just friends that, maybe they're both nudists or something. Who knows? But these rationalizations are insane. And that's an indication of how powerful the addiction is. So you were so excited to get back your drug that you had those feelings of winning against this other person. Yes, because of the triangulation as well, where he had, without you two even knowing it, made you two opponents, and himself at the top of the triangle, him, the prize. And that's classic triangulation. But your thought process is where you think about now and you think, really? That is insane. That is the goal of every narcissist and the outcome for every single victim, to feel and act insane. Mm-hmm. So don't be embarrassed, because it is so textbook.
It is when you're in it, you can understand it. I know there'll be people listening to this that have never been in this type of relationship and think, whoa, boundaries, standards, Barbara, where are they? But it was very real for me. And I've missed out a really important beginning part, which is something that rocked me every time. Triangulation really, really affected me. But the biggest thing was projection. So when I first moved to Australia, I still use Google Maps for everything, and I will never forget it. I went for a nail appointment I got lost. The nail appointment lady was running late. I was a lot longer than what I should have been. But I remember walking into the house, and I moved here for him, and I'd been living in the country for maybe, I want to say 14 days. And I walked in, and he's like at me straight away. Where have you been? Where have you been? Where the fuck have you been? And I was like, getting my nails done. And he was just going hammer and tongs going, oh yeah, what's his name? What's his name? And I'm like, so it came at me so fast, like, where have you been? What's his name? What's his name? Who are you? And I was like, I almost just standing there going, I got lost. I've moved countries for you. I've just got my nails done. And I just remember going, what? So in that moment, he was clearly projecting to me. And now I know this to be true as well. He was already sleeping around with other women. So a lot of the times in the beginning part of the relationship where someone is saying something to you and you're just like, where it's just come out of left field. Where has that come from? And oh my gosh, I would never do that. I want people to open their eyes and open their ears and be like, a lot of the time, these people in our lives openly tell us what they're doing, but say we're doing it. And that was something that, like, I know in the thick of it, even if you were standing there right alongside me saying that to me in that moment, it wouldn't have mattered because I wouldn't have believed you.
Yeah. So he had, well, number one, he'd isolated you.
Yes.
So he could drop the mask now. The love bombing, that's over. She's moved countries for me. There's not going to be any gratitude there. All there is, okay, now I can stop love bombing and make it all about me. They've got you on your own. You're hooked. That's clear. And you're seeing the true self. You are seeing who he really is. And yes, projection, everything he's accused you of, everything they accuse you of, everything they call you, every name they call you, whether it's bad mother, which is what they usually, or bad father, they usually love to attack your parenthood. It's a confession. They're talking about themselves. And of course, they're going for the chink in your armor, the things that are most important to you, because you will defend them the most. But that's crazy making. Of course, there is no... it was crazy to accuse you of that. There was no rhyme nor reason. So clearly he's projecting. He's telling you what he's doing. And projection is also gaslighting. It makes no sense. Why on earth are they calling me this name or accusing me of doing this? It's nonsensical.
And one thing too is... when you're in that cycle and they leave you for someone else and then you're left alone and they come back and then you think, oh, they've changed. This is really going to work now. And I want people to know that can happen, I think, really up to 7 times of don't beat yourself up because it is a drug. It is a chemical reaction in your body and they will never end it. You're the one that's got to cut all contact. It's the only way. And sit and work on yourself through that moment. It's such and it's such an isolating thing. Not only do they isolate you, but people around you do not understand. They think that you've put your partner in front of your girlfriends, which isn't the truth. I've had both sides. I've had both that have physically isolated me, and then I've had ones where my partner and ex-husband would tell me that girlfriend's a bitch and that one's not really good. And I listened to them, of course. I'm friends with them all now. I've made, I've really made amends, which is awesome. But they can really isolate you. And then when you're going through this, at your darkest moment where you feel the most shittiest about yourself, you're so lonely and you're like, man, I'm really crappy. Then they go get someone else, which instantly you are just like, oh my God, they're so much better than me, which reinforces that you feel crappy. And it's this isolation of just... it really brainwashes you and just sucks the soul out of you that you've got no one to turn to. And then when you try and turn to people, they don't believe you or they think you're the problem. Or this beautiful term called flying monkeys is they have all these weird people that are drinking his Kool-Aid, and especially the family that just, one particular one that just thought they knew he had problems, but they would just enable him to keep going with them and just thought, it didn't make sense. I'd be like, you know that he's got issues with gambling and drugs and alcohol.
Their reputation and image, obviously it's a narcissistic, or I would say a narcissistic family. There's a lot of the time there is, at least one narcissistic parent there behind them. So their image, their reputation as a whole unit is going to far outweigh their need to make him accountable. They're looking at that image they have created as the perfect family, and you're the one who is the enemy, because you, in tarnishing his reputation, also tarnish the unit's reputation, the family.
Yeah, and I know that can hurt a lot of people, that when they move on to someone else and they really quickly move that someone else into the family. So you might have been the person that got introduced to the family, and they're like, oh, and I have had this numerous times. I've gone to a barbecue or a dinner with one or a family thing, and the family members have come up to me and, oh, you're lovely. You're not crazy like the other one. And I remember used to thinking, oh, okay. Because you're so in the beginning, you don't realize, but they all have the same playbook. So by number 5, that relationship was only 6 months long. But I can tell you that the 5th relationship I had was the most dangerous, was the most toxic, was absolutely horrific, that if I had met him when I was in my 20s, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
I would be, unfortunately, one of those women on the news that he would have done something to me.
Really dangerous.
Yeah. So this is serious. That's why I wanted you on here today. It's not just a word that people get passed around. Oh, you're a narcissist or you're toxic. Seriously, when you come from a parent that this is all you don't know you're doing it. And then when you're in it, it is so hard to break away from it, because
you're conditioned, especially if you have, because obviously this can happen to anyone. Anyone can be abused by a narcissist, but core wounds such as, growing up in a toxic family environment with a narcissistic parent are going to make you even more vulnerable. But in that trauma, especially as a child of a narcissist, you're learning your entire life while your brain is still growing around what love looks like. This is what people who love you do to you. And of course, the family's portraying that loving image to the rest of society. So you've got to support that image. And you probably wouldn't believe if you tried to talk about the abuse anyway. And most of the times, a child, you don't recognize it as abuse. So this is your life. It's normal. So during your childhood, while your brain is growing, you're learning that love is control, love is abuse, love is never having any needs of your own, love is pleasing someone else, love is having an extremely high threshold for abuse, because people who love you abuse you, and you have to act like nothing's happened when they've done it. You have a threshold for respect that's on the ground, but you become an adult and you've got some power. So this person who might leave you because you're not putting up with the abuse, you're reacting to it, you can really try harder as an adult to please them, and by developing higher and higher thresholds for abuse, because you had no power as a child, but you now do as an adult. So this toxicity is normal, but you're also taking on a higher and higher threshold for abuse, because you think, I can fix this. I'm an adult now.
Yeah, and for me, this is not everyone's situation, so I don't want everyone to think that they have to do that. But my father was that bad, and he's still alive, but I haven't seen him or talked to him since I was 21. I actually had to remove myself, and that was part of my healing journey. And I tell you what, people that don't have a narcissistic parent will not understand what I'm about to say. It is the best thing I've ever done in my life. I will always grieve and mourn both parents really. They're not, but I would always mourn and grieve. Oh, I wish I had parents that XYZ, so I'll always be sad, but I am so proud of myself, and it's what I had to do. And I tell you what, the first 10 years or so of that, so many people don't tell many people that I've cut him out and don't speak to him, but people that know my story know me. That first 10 years, oh, Barbara, you've only got one dad and can't be that bad, whatever. And then sometimes I would share a little snippet of what he used to say to me as a kid, and they'd go, oh. And I'm like, well, I don't feel like I have to share my story for people to understand. But I have to be so strong, because even when people go, you've only got one dad, and if you were to have kids one day, I'm like, oh, yeah, maybe. But I can put hand on heart, and it is the best thing for me in my circumstance, what I had to do to protect. And I was the golden child too. I was daddy's little girl, and we were tight. So to do that whole 360, and I was like, oh, you're not. When I was 21, the mask had already fallen for him, but when I was 21, I came back from an overseas trip, and he left my mum for someone else. He would have had affairs on my poor mother the whole time. But I turned up from the States and got home, walked in the door, and I looked at him and was like, you're a piece of shit. Like I could just see him for who he was. And we went out for a beer, and I basically just laid everything down. And I said, this. And he said to me, well, if you don't accept this, then I don't want anything to do with you. I'm cutting you out of my will. I'm doing this. And I said, mate, that's it. I literally just put my hands up and I walked away. I know I've what's the word when you hurt a narcissist? You injury. You
create a narcissistic injury. You wound.
I know to this day that he's just like, but it's the best thing I had to do, and I couldn't listen to anyone else. And that was how severe and how bad it was in my life. So people that are listening to this, love and healthy love and unconditional love never gives you that funny sick feeling in your tummy. I still remember what that feels like. They make you cry. They never say hurtful things. They would accept you just as you are. You don't need to do anything to get approval or love. And that's what I want people to take away, is love is unconditional.
Yeah. And people who love you don't abuse you. And you don't have to tolerate abuse because you're connected to someone through DNA or biology.
Yes.
You're allowed to end that relationship, and you don't have to explain to someone else who has not walked in your shoes. Unfortunately, people in society will say things like that. You've only got one mother. Well, that doesn't mean I'm going to have this person in my life if they're abusing me. So should I keep her in my life because she's the only person, even though she's abusing me? Of course not. And we're not talking about isolated incident. This is a lifetime pattern. It's who they are. It's their personality. So why would you keep someone in your life, no matter who they are, who continues to abuse you and try and intentionally destroy your self-esteem and self-worth to make themselves feel better?
And the roller coasters and the ups and downs. And I want people to know that these people will never change. Will never, and it's good that you can back me up on this. They will never change. They're incapable of love. And once I could understand, when I started my own therapy journey before I became a therapist, and I understood that the chemical makeup and how they operate, they're actually incapable of love. And then I watched the 5 that I have been with, and I don't know what they're doing now, but I can imagine it's just like, right, it wasn't me, and their lives haven't suddenly got better. They won't find the perfect person. It's just me replicated. So these, guys, if you're listening to this and you're triangulating yourself, you're looking at the other supply, is she better than me, whatever? She's just you, a beautiful, empathetic, person who just is attracted, has that same trauma bond, and just, understand that that's just you in a different version.
Yeah, exactly. And they will, as sure as the sun comes up tomorrow, go through exactly what you went through. There is nothing to change to, because you only want them to change from your perspective, from from believing, seeing that there's something wrong with them. They don't think there's anything wrong with them. This is who they are.
Oh.
They think everything is wrong with everyone else. So when we say, will they change for that person? What are they going to change to? This is just who they are. They must love bomb them, and it must be over the top, or at least love bombing as it is for that particular person, what makes them feel special, because they need to hook you in quickly. It's a lot of work. They want to get it over and done with so it can all be about them, and you can start panicking about where your prince or your princess went, and therefore try to please them and tolerate all of the abuse and go through all of the motions that feeds them their supply.
Yeah. And before we go, one thing too, if you're listening to this podcast or you're starting to watch YouTube videos, I'll get you to share your page in a minute so people can, if they want to know more, they can reach out to you. So if you're listening to this podcast, or you know someone that's in a situation that's narcissistic abuse, you're starting to read a couple of books, you're starting to watch a YouTube video, do not ever tell them that you're a narcissist or you're a psychopath, we've even talked about the different types, but save yourself a favor. You know what they are, they know what they are. But if you tell them, I went to a therapist and you're this, or you label them, or have the book lying around and I'm reading this book, they will just go at you.
Yeah, they'll just flip it around on you. They'll go away and research it. You will never get an acknowledgement. You will just be accused of being the narcissist, and you give your hand away. You tell them what you know, and they just project it back on to you. It is always a bad idea to call them a narcissist. You keep those cards very close to your chest.
Absolutely. And don't go to therapy with one either, because if the therapist has never had, if they aren't experienced in this, the narcissist will turn the therapist against you, and it'll be 2 against 1, and it won't be a nice, pleasant experience.
No, they'll be used as an ally for the actual abuser. Yeah.
So, and then that's just horrible, because they're brave enough to reach out for help, and they reach out for help, and then it just, maybe it is me.
Yeah, and that's why the narcissist will go. That's the only reason the narcissist will go, to re-traumatize you and have a mental health profession to back them up. Yeah. And it reinforces that you're the problem. So it's very important. These are not, and I just want all your listeners, if they remember one thing, it's that these are not relationship issues. They're issues of abuse. Therefore, you don't go to counselling with your abuser. You go to counselling on your own to heal from a distance, and the abuser, they won't do unless they're trying to manipulate you, should be going to counselling to deal with the fact that they are an abuser. These are not relationship issues. But, of course, you don't know that at the time. You get manipulated into thinking, or you're hopeful to keep your drug in your life, that a professional will be able to tell your partner that what they're doing is wrong. But if you think about it, you're going to a counsellor to have the counsellor tell your partner that, you know what, it's not a good idea to call your partner disgusting names. It's not a good idea to cheat on them and then tell them that's because they put on weight. It's not a good idea to do all of this stuff. You need a counsellor to tell them this. They already know what they're doing is wrong. They just don't care. And if you have to take your abuser to a counsellor so that they can tell them that 1 + 1 = 2, then you are really in that fog where you're still searching for any reason to keep the drug in your life because of that powerful trauma bond.
Yeah. Now, I know we haven't spoken about it today, but if someone's listening to this and they have a child and they know their partner, the ex-partner, is a narcissist, or you think that one of your parents is a narcissist, or you're currently dating a narcissist, or you're someone like me that just has this awesome superpower that can scope one out from across the world. You have the superpower that you're like, there's one. Where can these people find you to learn about it and to work with you?
Okay, so I've got a couple of platforms. So just look for Nova Gibson author on Facebook. On Instagram, I'm known as Nova's Narcissist Abuse Recovery. TikTok, Nova's Narc Recovery. But you can access, I guess, counselling, one-on-one support. No matter where you are in the world, I support victims and survivors all over the world. It's just a matter of working out the time zone. Just go to my website, which is www.brighter.outlook.narcissisticabuse.counselling.com.au, and that's called that. It's a very long name, but that's all I do now. I used to do all sorts of different counselling, and now this is all I do. I only work with victims of narcissistic abuse.
Thank you, because I wish I knew that where you were 7 years ago, because I would have needed you. And I know this is becoming more and more people are being aware, but thank you for getting it, for understanding it, for not belittling people like me that have gone through that, and you have beautifully said in this whole podcast that it's not a nothing wrong with people like me. It's not a relationship thing. It's a trauma bond thing.
Yeah. Well, and this is abuse. What you're experiencing, the crazy reactions you have, the crazy thoughts you have, the crazy behavior you engage in when you're in this crazy trauma zone, that's not your fault. This is a setup to make you act crazy and depend on an actual crazy person. But for people out there who want to know more, please just read Fake Love, my book. You can find it online on Amazon, Booktopia, and all good bookstores all over the world.
I'm going to have it in my studio too, so I'll have a few copies.
Thank you.
So, my pleasure. If people want to when they come in for a counselling session, grab a book. Also, you can listen to it on audiobooks as well. So a lot of people, if you're walking or whatever, that's a nice way to, sometimes I'll have a book and I'll have an audiobook. So I'll have both of them together. Thank you. I know at some stage we'll probably have another one, because I know there's so many different levels of
No, I'd be more than happy to come back and talk some more. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and it has inspired you on your self-care journey. Please feel free to share this with a friend and subscribe over on Apple Podcast. I really love hearing your feedback. So guys, please feel free to write a review on Apple and let me know which part of this episode resonated with you the most. To fall in love with yourself is the first secret to happiness. To find out a bit more about Self-Care Studio or the Studio Chat podcast, head over to my Instagram page, self_care_studio, or on my website, selfcarebybarbarathomson.com.au. Really look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Look after you. And I'll catch you soon. Bye.